want to be on? Take the word possessiveness. Think about that a little bit. Possessiveness, and write down the following sentence. I can either temporarily possess pretty bubbles, or I can eternally possess the entire universe. I can either temporarily possess pretty bubbles, or I can eternally possess the entire universe. I can either temporarily possess pretty bubbles or eternally possess the entire universe. Does that sound a little bit too much for you to think that you can possess the entire universe? The way to possess it is to be it. And you can't be it as long as you prefer your pretty little bubbles, your pretty little possessions. Can you see inside of yourself how whenever you see something, whether an individual or a home, an object of some kind, where your first thought is, how can I get it? And how can I make it my personal and permanent possession? Why don't you try to possess the air you breathe? Why don't you set up a big fence somewhere out in the desert and charge people $50 an hour for breathing? Why don't you go down to the Colorado River and put up a big sign, my personal river, 10 cents a cup. Deposit on the cup. Someday I'll get you to the point where you can shift more quickly than that. You're too serious. Oh, you're so serious. Write down a sentence. My seriousness is driving me batty. My seriousness is driving me batty.
My batty is driving me serious.
My batty is driving me serious. All right. You know, I can fully understand you being so serious. You're carrying big dumb you around all day long. And that's a pretty serious problem, isn't it? Huh? Back to the principle of possessiveness. You can possess the entire universe for eternity if you simply see that your pretty bubbles are bubbles. What's the lifespan of a bubble? 2 or 3 seconds? What's the lifespan of your beautiful home? Someone else is going to possess that home after you go, you know. What's the lifespan of that beautiful new Cadillac you've got? What's the lifespan of you possessing that beautiful woman or that handsome man? Don't you know you're living in a world of time and in a world of change? And that if you attach your temporary self to these temporary things, you can only live in agony of loss, the fear of loss? What we're trying to do in this class is to not to possess anything so that we can possess everything, so that there's complete detachment for everything, including the physical body that we now occupy. Be so detached from that that it means nothing to us if and when it goes away, which it surely will. You see, God, truth, reality, being eternal, possesses everything that belongs to eternity as well as everything that belongs to time. Certainly, God possesses that tree out there and possesses the river and possesses the pretty field out there. Certainly, he possesses that. But he's not attached to that because he is the whole business. But I fearing eternity, because myself, my time self always fears eternity, I try to attach myself, I try to possess, I try to grab on and say, this is mine. But I don't see the contradiction, the foolishness of trying to latch onto that other person, trying to possess him or her. I don't see the foolishness of that because I have no sense of eternity, which is why we're trying to develop it here. So that if that person or that car or that home or that river comes into my possession as a temporary thing, then I see it as temporary and I'm just as willing. In fact, I don't even think about whether I'm willing or not. I'm just as willing to let him or her go as I am willing to let him or her come into my life. I'm not getting a false sense of eternity out of possessing that person or that pleasure or that new color TV set or whatever it might be, because I understand that it's going to go. And when I understand that it's going to go and I understand that I'm going to go, then I'm free of the whole business, because there's no one there trying to do the impossible, which is to achieve a sense of permanence by hanging on, clinging on to temporary things. Then you can walk through this world of physical objects, of physical people, have a wife maybe, have a husband, have children, have a friend. You can have all these things without fear that when they go that you will go, because you've already gone. Or, more accurately, you understand that you weren't there in the first place. Right? But it was merely an idea that you were there and that you could possess these things. So getting rid, as you brought out, of this center false illusion that I can have anything, getting rid of that is the very heart of our work here. And if you think of something you possess now that you'd feel bad about if it went away, what do you imagine, what do you think you possess? Wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, employment, bank account, health, life, physical life. Do search out. This is what is called catching the devil behind the 12th tree in another way. Do search out and see where you have a dependency on something that is temporary, something that can or will go away. By doing that, you can willingly let them go now, so that you're depending, to use the word dependence deliberately, you're depending on something that is now eternal. And that is right dependency, but even to say the word dependence on truth is wrong, because then there's still I depending on truth. There's no I that can depend on truth. There's only truth, and when the I vanishes, then I and my Father are one. I and truth are one. And in that way, all temporal things can come and go, and I just look at them come and go, because there's no self-reference back to me. I don't say, how will I feel if he goes away? What will happen to me if she goes away? There's not the slightest self-reference there, because I've understood everything that we've talked about in this class. Now I'm at peace. Then I sit back as the observer and just watch the ships on the river flowing down the river. If one of them happens to come into the harbor for a minute and I get on board, and I'm on board that ship a little bit, but then the captain says time for the ship to move on, I get off and the ship moves on down again. Another boat comes down, maybe it has money on it, and I get on that boat and I use the money. Captain says time for the boat to move on. What do I care? I own the whole river. I own everything on the river banks. I own everything extending beyond the river banks. I own the whole world. I own the whole universe. When I see that, then it is quite proper for me, still living in the physical body, to get on the boat, take anything I want, anything that's useful, anything that's right to take, and then get off the boat again. But I'm still in the whole universe. So the captain says, time for the physical body to go away. So what's that? So what's that? I am not that. I don't look in the mirror anymore and say that's me. I look in the mirror and I see that according to nature, the face was physically formed a certain way. I noticed that it's not quite as smooth a skin as it was 20 years ago, and the hair isn't as black or as thick as it was a few. I notice those things because I'm conscious of all physical things. I'm very sharp in seeing these things in myself and in other people. But there's no attachment because that isn't me at all. I'm not possessing that smooth face, that youthful-looking face. Therefore, I'm not fearful of the older face. I'm living in a timeless state in which there is no fear because there is no me. You begin to give a lot more attention, please, to your sense of possessiveness. And the one way you can become aware of this is when what you possess seems to be disappearing, when it threatens to go away. Because at that moment, you can then become aware of how you've connected that man, you've connected that woman with, with your sense of possessiveness. Now is your chance to see something that you may not see, even as I'm talking here this morning. You can see now that that fear is a sign of everything we've talked about this morning, that you're getting a false sense of security. You're getting a false sense of being important, of being needed, of being necessary by attaching yourself to that man or to that woman or to that ambition or to that hobby or to that recreation or to whatever. Simply, or attached to simply an idea you have about yourself. You are an intelligent, spiritual person or whatever. Something seems to threaten that. Someone says, you're not intelligent at all. In fact, you're very stupid. Look what you did. You're very stupid. You can watch that and see how you had attached yourself to the possessiveness of calling yourself intelligent, brilliant, and spiritual or whatever. Now, the very observation of and the knowledge of that fear, because you become honest, the rising of that fear, and you've seen it there, says, caught the devil. I caught it. I didn't catch it before because no one told me that I was possessive. I didn't know these things. I didn't have knowledge and understanding of these things. But thanks to that explanation, I can now see the state I was actually in, and I can begin to watch it in daily contacts. And now again I understand what it means to catch the devil behind the 12th tree. That is, to catch him before he sneaks behind one tree on up until he's able to the point where he can grab me. And I can begin to see what I've been doing to myself all my life, thinking that it was a good thing to possess you or that or that. And I can see, furthermore, now other things become clear to me. I can begin to see how proud I was of that beautiful girlfriend of mine. How proud I was that that man asked me to marry him, and we've been married for 30 years. And we're beginning to get anniversary presents, 30, 40 years, whatever. I can begin to see how the important things in my life were the things that, what I called important, were the things that were keeping me in the state of possessive destructiveness. How I look forward to that 40 years of marriage, and the children are going to come over, and they run the little piece in the paper about how long we've been married. And then I come to a group like this. And it starts to destroy everything. It starts to tear me down. I don't want to hear you talk that way. But I'm tired of lying. My husband isn't, or my wife isn't, but I am, and I know that 40th anniversary get-together and dinner is phony. I wish I hadn't come to this class and heard that idea about possessiveness. But now that I've heard it, you've upset me. You've done terrible things to me. Thank you. Because I can't lie anymore. Thank you for exposing to me what I've been doing. So you can begin to see all these things and see how we have been in unconscious, pleasurable misery. Unconscious, pleasurable misery. We sent out invitations, and of course I and my husband didn't do it myself because we're supposed to be modest about the 40th anniversary. So I got my children to do it. We're giving a big party for Mom and Pop on their 40th anniversary, dinner and all that. And so, because I kind of stay out of, because I have to be modest about it. I hope the whole town comes and brings me presents and puts a headline in the paper. Of course, I don't expect that much, but I get what I can out of it. And so my children and I subtly slip them a little book of addresses, and they send out 200 invitations to come to the party. We're going to go to the picnic where there's plenty of room. 200 invitations, and 10 people show up outside of the children. And a couple of them didn't want to come. All right. Come here, and I'll put it this way, and you'll understand. Come here for one main single purpose: to let the truth that is given in this room begin to upset you, to begin that you understand, of course, the truth doesn't upset you. It's your resistance to it that causes the upset. It's your lies or my lies that cause the upset. Come here and let the truth destroy anything that it wants to destroy. And the more miserable it makes you, the more progress you are making. But I'm afraid the slightest little affront to my dignity is going to get me out of that door, and I'll never come back again. The slightest, right?
Right.
Those of you who can come back here time after time after time and begin to get scared, you're making progress. And you're to be congratulated in the right way, of course. But if you want to come here just once or twice, as perhaps some of you have done this morning or last night, or future people who will come, if you don't want to do one of the key words that we have here is to investigate, then you'll have to go back. You'll have to be disappointed when only 10 people show up. You'll have to be disappointed when your husband hints that he's found someone younger, and you'll have to be scared. Please know that the loosening of your possessions, whether it's husband, wife, riches, health, youth, whatever it might be, the losing of your possessions is the one thing that will guarantee you an eternity for yourself, and nothing else will. So make up your mind which you want. Please don't be so stupid as to think that buying that new silverware is going to do anything for you. You've wanted it and you put your money aside for it. Now, look, may I tell you that you're not that silverware. You think you are. You really think you're that beautiful. You do. You do. You're not. Don't be so stupid anymore. Don't be so stupid as to care what your husband thinks of you. He's lost, so what he thinks of you has no validity at all. Why do you want to possess the junk of your husband? Your husband's junk. Don't you know that? Don't you know that your wife is junk? You want to possess that? You've got enough of your own. Possessiveness of any kind starts with false values. False values start with acquisitiveness, which connects simply with the fact that we were brought into this world thinking incorrectly. See how simple we can do it? We are brought into this world thinking incorrectly. Why are we here this morning? To know, first of all, to accept the fact that we're thinking incorrect. Now, what's the matter with that? Is that an insult to you? It's an insult to you only if you insist that you were already thinking correctly. The humility, the right humility of seeing that we've been thinking, what's the matter with that? Please Please, let's all go around, do this the right way, please, not dumbly. Go around informing each other that we're thinking incorrectly, which we're doing, of course, so that I can see that this thinking incorrectly leads to such things as acquisitiveness and possessiveness, which brings me into pain and doubt and confusion and suppressing the way I feel because I don't know who to talk. There's nobody to talk to about it. I try to talking to myself and I'm talking to a nut. And my relatives, my relatives are just as bad. We're just as bad. Of course, at first, when we're told that we're doing all these wrong things, it hits us wrong and we don't want to hear it. Make it your aim to want to be insulted and shocked as often as possible here in this class and out in the world. But in this class, you will learn how to take the shocks from the world rightly so that they're not wasted. They're wasted now. Besides, whatever you possess will, just look, take one simple fact out of all we've discussed. Whatever you now possess, take as your possession, will someday go away. Why don't you let it go away right now psychologically? That doesn't mean you leave your husband, doesn't mean you leave your wife. It means you let them go right now, which will be equal to your understanding and application of what it means to let yourself go right now. Because as long as the self is there, it has no choice but try to possess in order to feel secure. As it begins to disappear through knowledge that it has no real existence at all, then equally the force of it trying to feel secure by possessions will also disappear. As I disappear, my wish to hang on to you for my security, so-called security, also disappears. That's clear, isn't it? Then when things come into my life, there's no hand that reaches out to clutch it and hang on to it tightly. Can't you see the strain in trying to hang on to something? It wants to go away by nature. It wants to go away and you try to hang on. There's no way you can hang on to it. It will get out of your grasp sooner or later. No matter how many tricks you play, how many compromises, how many lies you tell to that other person, sooner or later he or she will go away. As a matter of fact, in deeper sense of it, she or he was never in your life properly in the first place. Right. There was physical contact, there was sexual contact, there was social contact, there was marriage contact, but he or she, you were never in right contact with that person after all, because both of you were trying to hang on to each other, right? Huddled up with each other against the world and all that. But you were never truly together, as evidenced by the fact that you fight all the time. Just think, you're having a big quarrel, a big fight, a big angry outburst with that person that you claim you can't live without. Some kind of a contradiction there, huh? And the contradiction is in here, of course. When this happens, which you can begin to see that it's been a false relationship from the start, and you begin to straighten out inwardly, then you, having a right relationship with yourself, will have a right relationship with that husband or wife, whether or not he or she has one with you, because you have dropped your possessiveness. And he or she will begin to sense this, by the way, and will have all kinds of confused reactions to it. The wife or husband won't know what to think when you are beginning to demand less from him or her, and that will make him, I'll use him from now on, that will make him very uneasy because he was getting a sense of importance out of you demanding things from him, and you're not doing it anymore, and he's going to say, I guess you don't want me anymore. You used to even yell at me. You don't even yell at me anymore. Please scream at me so I'll feel important enough at least to be screamed at. You're not doing that anymore. and they will get scared. And then in order to hold you, you watch how he or she will begin to fawn toward you as you used to fawn toward him. But you're not doing that anymore. Now the tables are turned toward us, so to speak, because he was a coward too all the time, dominating you, threatening you. Now he thinks that you are like he used to be, and he thinks that you are going to, now you're beginning to threaten him because this is the only way he can think, and it's not that way at all. You were losing your threat because you are becoming free, but he doesn't know that. He thinks that you are still the animal that he still is, which is the only way an animal can still think. And his confusion is horrible, which is no concern of yours. What you're doing is doing the right thing of becoming a true, decent human being, and that's your only responsibility, not to teach him at all. You are teaching him by your inner change, which will then it will express itself differently. But if he doesn't want the lesson, what's that to you? You are teaching yourself. You're the only pupil in your class, the only pupil that should be in your class. Your husband or wife or relatives don't belong there unless they come voluntarily and say by word or manner, I want to be in your class, but please don't expect it. There's very, very little chance that it can happen. We'll take 5 minutes of questions and open discussion, and then we'll have a break. Yes, Tom.
You've just given exactly what has happened in Amy's life recently. She has seen the value in the class and has kept coming back. And her husband first approached her in a violent way, and then approached her in a fawning way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just exactly what has happened. And she has remained true to what she sees in here, and her life is changing because of that.
Yes, you keep encouraging each other. I'm sure you do. Would you either nod or shake your head to what I just said?
I didn't understand the reference.
Excuse me. Will you and Amy continue to encourage and help each other?
Okay.
Is that a baffling question to you?
Oh, are we continuing to encourage each other?
Yes. Don't take it too far or you get confused.
Right.
Drop it. I can see it was too much for you.
So then, all of the problems that we have inside of us are actually the product of thought. And that if we can drop incorrect thought, problems just disappear.
Correct.
This is just a comment, but I am so sensitive, I don't want to go anywhere or do anything.
Expand.
I just can't stand being with anybody.
Expand.
I guess I'm just afraid.
Just see a hand back there.
If certain thoughts cause tremendous mechanical feelings, I mean, unbelievable, where they're almost violent inside of you, just as you keep watching them, will they eventually slow down a little bit?
Yes.
Sometimes they're uncontrollable. I mean, you want to, but they just boom, there they are.
Yes. Now look, even if you don't understand what it means to watch your thoughts, to see them as an impartial observer standing outside of yourself, even if you don't understand that, do it. And the doing of it will finally bring understanding. You have to work in the dark for now. That's all right. Tom, and then...
I want to take another shot at this. Does she encourage me? I'm asking you now.
Oh, forget it, Tom.
What you said about possessiveness is perfect proof that our false states are illogical. In other words, what we possess is going to disappear. But the false self is so illogical that we insist we have to have it.
Yes. That's a good phrase, illogical.
I have picked a particular cafe doorway as a project to know I touch, walk in, and walk out. And I've done it for quite a while now, and this morning I walked out of the cafe, walked through the door. I knew I was at the door, but I didn't precondition my thinking, know you're there, or afterwards the thought didn't come up, you forgot to remember. I knew I walked through it without thinking about walking through that door.
All right, and let me remind you now, don't you start doing some mechanical little habit and call it conscious awareness of doing it. The little boy is walking down the street and he has a stick in his hand, and there's the fence, and he takes his stick and goes and makes a big noise as he goes by. He does that every time he goes by the fence. He doesn't know he's doing that. Now, don't you fall into the trap of thinking you're working because you do something like that. Go ahead.
What you start to begin to talk with being accepted by people, this exception and possession is very closely related. The minute somebody accepts me, I start my possessiveness.
Yes. And you're afraid you're going to lose it.
Yes.
Which is fear of rejection.
Yes. And you know, you right away, you like to be accepted in order to dump all your junk on them.
That's right.
Then we call it the game of give and take. We call it sharing with another.
A good give and take marriage, yes. Only I want to take and not give. But I don't want you to know that. Did you have any?
Yeah, right. A while ago, I heard you explain the whole world in cause and effect relationship.
What about, instead of doing a certain project, just see that one is alive at that moment?
Fine, fine. That is a project, isn't it? All right, let's take 10 or 12 minutes. Then we'll come back for open discussion.
I like to speak about full attention and instant recovery. And I thought of a little story yesterday of a little dog I used to know, which his master had trained him with a piece of meat on his nose not to touch that meat. And so later on, when he was well trained, you could lay something there and he would sit and watch this with full attention. At the same time, he watched his master with full attention. Because the minute a slightest flick of his hand or a movement at all, the dog was ready to attack that little piece of meat. But after he had the meat, he was fully recovered. There was no dragging on from the incidents. He didn't pout at his master for not letting him have it sooner. There was total attention at the time and instant recovery. And I think this is one of the virtues we need in this work, that we do a little work project, and even if we fail or if we succeed, let it go and don't linger with it. And this is most difficult to do in our so severely mixed up head. We succeed in one little thing and we want to carry it around and huddle it all day long.
Next. I guess Frank. Doesn't make a difference, the order.
Yeah, I lost my order.
Doesn't make a difference.
I got blown away when you were talking to Keith and lost my order. Thinking about the world and everything that I find attractive is convincing me more and more that there's less and less out there that is real that I think I need, and I really don't need to survive psychologically. In fact, I got a suspicion that I haven't realized that there's nothing in this world that I need for me to survive psychologically. And that goes as far as my own physical life, even my mechanical mind, which I really don't understand that yet. I'd like to, but I know I don't. And that's why I'm still scared. That's why I still worry about whether you like me or this thing about acceptance. So,
Next, please.
Last week, Vernon said, we were talking about people that come up that previously went to the group and ask you how it's going. Well, Sunday, a person at work that used to come here, he asked me if I still went. And I said, I do. And I could see that in his eyes he wanted to say, like last week, he said that he wanted to be right that he left the group. He asked me why I still went. I said I felt that I was getting good work out of it. One of the reasons he left was he felt bad that Vernon, I guess, blasted some of the people. And he goes, why is he so mean to them? And he really felt, I guess, self-conscious about the other people. And I can see it now that if he doesn't, we're not going to wake up. He can't be buddy to us all. And this person, he says, yeah, I see what you mean. He says that he joined this other group. And he showed me the card. They had a name for it, had a membership card. He said, well, every other group talks about the same thing. Same exact thing. And I looked at the card and it has just about everything to identify itself as a group that you'd ever want. There was a strong impulse in me to defend the group, say, no, that's not right. Yours is wrong and ours is right, but I just let it go. 'Cause I could see the anxious in me, just want to defend it, make him wrong and me right. I'd like to take 2 questions.
How old is this guy that came to the group and left?
I think he's 20.
As your story progressed this morning, did you feel yourself becoming less conscious of us toward the end of your talk?
I wasn't aware of it. Wasn't aware of what I was saying.
You said 2.
No.
Well, I'd like to start out. I'd like to start out my talk saying something that I had not planned to say. So I'll just say Shazam. And in continuation, I'd like to mention, in my growing up in adolescence years, I remember at the dinner table, and during the entire period, all sentences were clipped. If there was some request necessary, like, please pass the salt, I'd like to season my food, you'd have a pointed finger that would say salt. And during the period of my daytime activities, I would say and hear very few words at home. Therefore, we are here, and we are one big family. We're all brothers and sisters experiencing a beautiful experience. And aside from this, I don't have too much else to say. Next, please. Linda, did you have your hand up?
I wanted to ask you a question.
No, all right, just speakers for now, please. Any last speakers?
Right here.
Lorraine.
Who?
Lorraine.
Lorraine.
Yes, go ahead, Lorraine. Sorry.
Good morning.
Morning.
I've never stood up in front of the class before, and I feel very uncomfortable. So, that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Right. All right, last chance. All right, Linda, ask your question.
Is it wrong to have a goal or a dream,
Yes.
even if it's something like you'd like to dance nice or something like that?
Say that, I'm sorry, say that again.
Even if you'd like to say dance nicely, a dream of dancing nicely, being able to do all the steps that are...
All right, let me ask you a question. Why do you want to be able to dance nicely and gracefully? What is your motive?
Good physical fitness.
Pardon?
Good physical fitness.
Now, is that the truth of the matter?
I think so.
Now, I want you to investigate that so you can answer your own question. One of the most shocking experiences we can ever have is to see the real motive below the stated motive. That is what is known as a state of contradiction. When you say you do it for one reason, but really do it for another. And very few people can see through their contradictions.
How do you do?
Pardon?
How do you see through them?
What'd she say?
She said, how do you see through them?
Come to every class.
Another shocking experience is to answer my own question. I mean, really answer it.
Yes, if you can do it. And you might very nicely put yourself at the mercy of other people who can see your unconscious motives better than you can. Maybe your wife can see you better than you can, and vice versa. Be kind of shocking when she says, no, look, dear, the real reason you're doing that is for this reason, not that one. Watch how you hate her.
Yes.
Huh? Watch how you hate the wife you love.
Vernon, in this shock, when you see actually your real motive toward that other person, is there a proper shamefulness with that shock?
Well, yes, if the shamefulness is accompanied by a wish to see the contradiction instead of just fight it. And it'll be a grab bag at the start. You'll all be mixed up. Part of you wants to see it, another part wants nothing to do with seeing it. Go ahead, Phyllis.
What happened in an experience like that, sometimes it does occur where I will do something, thank you, Larry, and all of a sudden something inside makes me aware that that's not the real motive. I lose interest in doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When the real motive is revealed to me, I just don't want it anymore.
All right, write down a sentence which goes as follows. Honestly now, what is my ego interest motive? Honestly now, comma, what is my ego interest motive? You think it's easy to be honest? It's very hard to be honest because we've had so little to do with it all our life.
Mm-hmm.
1 second, Linda. This is one of those examples where we must go through the pain in order to free ourselves of the pain. When I'm in contradiction of any kind, for example, a difference in what I say, the reason I say I do this, and the real reason, if I can begin to consciously go through the pain of seeing that, that will eventually abolish the unconscious suffering that I'm going through by living in self-contradiction. Self-contradiction is always hell. I want to enter that hell. I want to look at it. I want to suffer in a new way from it in order to understand it, in order to see that I don't have to be in contradiction, in order to see that my stated ego interest is not really necessary. It's necessary only to the survival of my invented self, my artificial nature. It's necessary to that. But I want to get rid of that because that's the thing that's causing me all this agony. Now, Linda, hold it a minute while he changes something. Linda?
There's nothing really wrong with...
Would you stand up and kind of look forward, please? That's a girl.
In other words, there's nothing wrong if you want to physically improve yourself, but as long as your motives and real reasons are known to you.
All right, but what do you mean by self-improvement?
Well, I was always a very homely girl with a very bad body, and I worked to straighten it out, to help my life a little bit.
All right, let me tell you something. This higher that we are trying to reach in this class, this higher understanding will explain all these particular questions you have on the lower level. You can't understand the lower from the lower. You can't understand the madness of a snarling traffic when you're in one car. You're in that car and there's a freeway here and a stop signal there and a cop there and a million cars around you. You have to get in a helicopter and get above the traffic. Above, can't be in one car, your car. You have to get out of all cars, get up above. Then you can see the traffic, what it's all about, why cars crash, why they're going too slow or too fast. Don't you forget what I said. Otherwise, you're going to stay in that car and you can't understand why you're caught in that traffic snarl. Try to get up here, and then you'll understand why you got caught in it. Be aware of one more thing among the 10,000 things, which is, and the reason I brought this up, because I'm studying faces as I'm sitting here. Be aware, both in yourself and in other people, what is simply described as a defensive look, right? Even the face is tilted a certain way, isn't it? They're on there looking kind of, be aware of that. And when you see that, know that you're looking at a scared human being. You also know that that scared human being can suddenly turn hostile and snap at you, for example, or break down and cry, whichever way it happens. Be aware of defensive looks. The eyes. You're talking about something and you're getting a little close to home, right? They go like that. Be aware of that. And don't you dare get pleasure out of thinking that you are a god in yourself, that you have power to make them afraid. Only sickies and super sickies do that. Yes, Mom.
Just want to share something. When I started coming here, I didn't see myself as a very obedient person, but I was kind of amused at myself when I came in. I thought Joan told me to sit on the floor, and I was ready to sit down.
Okay. Being obedient to truth is the only obedience that is required of us. Now we have to begin to distinguish between obedience to truth and obedience to our own sickness.
Right.
There's the work.
Right.
Because our sickness will masquerade as truth, won't it?
Yeah.
Fantasy will masquerade as fact. When are you going to break down? When are you going to stop holding yourself together? Stella has been holding herself together. Otherwise, she wouldn't have had her little tiny breakdown in class. The rest of you too. Anytime any of you break down in a small way even, whether up front here or out there, that's because you're still trying to hold yourself together. They're talking to each other. We're in no hurry. Lorraine.
Could something happen to someone like, sometimes I get this really scared feeling like I'm going to just go right off the deep end.
Oh, yes. If that you're going batty?
Yeah.
Yeah. You understand you are batty?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Now, if you,
But like,
yeah, the rest of them feel the same way. That's all right. Go ahead, please.
when you talk, I feel like like it's supposed to happen. You're gonna go completely crazy.
No,
before
no.
you see the light or something?
It's not supposed to happen. It is already happening. What we're doing here is to tell you to watch yourself go batty. And as you continue to watch, you will begin to understand a very important principle, that this battiness, this craziness, this insanity is not really you. You are possessed by it. It's taken you over. Aren't we possessed?
Right.
Well, how many dumb thoughts, strangly thoughts have you thought already just since you've been here? See? And that's been going on all our life. We've got to see that this is our state and not lie about it. As you begin to not lie about it, something very strange and interesting will happen, which you never expected to happen, which essentially is what I just said. You'll be able to see that there's a part of you that can stand aside and watch the craziness without identifying with it, without saying, I am crazy. You're not crazy. Nobody here is really crazy. You have been taken over by craziness, which you call you. You're afraid that you'll go insane, which you already are. Well, how can you be afraid of going mad when you already are? This means you bring yourself right up to date right now and know you are. But here, we're seeing through a trick of madness, insanity, which is the devil. We're seeing through the trick of identification, which is for you to brag, to cry, to weep, to wail that I'm going crazy or I am crazy. You're not crazy. You're nothing. Now, you watch how you fight being nothing. You'd rather be insane than be nothing. You'll hear this over and over. I know you've heard this before, but you don't get it because you're still crazy.
Right.
Our insanity then becomes another possession.
Ah, very good. Good. Excellent.
What happened to Stella this morning, I recognize as being good. And what I learned from is that should happen to me. I shouldn't protect myself so much.
Yes. There's none of you that are not capable of breaking down. You'll do it in different ways, but it'll be the same thing. Larry, Linda.
You said a minute ago, you've heard this before. I've heard it 1,000 times before, but I've never heard it. I've heard it, but I haven't heard it.
Okay, all right. Someday you'll feel it, sense it, know it. Hearing and knowing are two different things. We take the hearing as knowing. Oh, I've heard that before. I've been to other groups. You know how many books I've read? I've read 50 books of truth. I know all those things. Why don't you tell me something new? So you go out of here in your insanity. Hate everybody. Try to hurt as many people as you can. That's your food, to hurt other people. This is why we all do our best, and I take the proud leadership in this, in getting rid of crumbs. And I'll get rid of some of you if you're crumbs. I'll make sure of that.
Right before I came to this class, I had locked myself up in my home for almost 2 solid years. I didn't want to be around people or anything, and I noticed that now that I'm trying to get out, I'm having a tough time around people. Just even communicating in any way. I'm frightened to death of them. I know they're lying to me. I mean, that's my problem. And I want to tell it so that Stella doesn't stay in hibernation, because it's not a good place to be.
Write down a sentence. I will stop being so stupidly important to myself. I will stop being so stupidly important to myself. You are stupidly important to yourself if you hide out from the world or if you go out into the world, either way, and try to do something wrong with it. Well, you know, when a nobody goes out into the world or stays home, that nobody is free. If somebody either stays home or goes out into the world, that somebody is chained. Do you understand? Yes. All right. Then I won't explain. Duffy.
How eventually everything you say in this class seems to be connecting.
Yes.
Like last week
Yes.
you spoke of the necessity of growing up and taking on our own responsibilities. And that connects so very much with what you said, that we do not want anything of the earthly attachments, like I want nothing from my husband, from my wife, from the silverware, from the house. And this is the responsibility we have to take on.
Quite right. Very good. This class gives you the opportunity to do something you've never been able to do before in front of your relatives or wife or husband, or even in front of yourself. This class gives you the opportunity to break down completely. And as you break down completely, you don't stand a chance. We're telling you that it is not a shameful thing to break down, but a marvelous, beautiful experience. Because beyond the breakdown is liberty. The breakdown consists of simply seeing that you are in prison. I'm in that cell, confined, told what to do all day long by the warden and the guards. The breakdown is to suddenly become aware that you have been in prison all your life. Having seen that and having been shamed into seeing that you were lying on your jail cot, dreaming that you were out in the beautiful world of mountains and fields and people, you were aware that it was all a dream, which you took as reality. So now you're shamed into seeing that you've been a liar all your life. But the minute you see that you've been a liar all your life, a new kind of intelligence and energy and power enters into you, which is the intelligence to begin to study your situation inside the prison. You study the lock, and you see that there's ways you can get that lock open. You study the pacing of the guards, and you know you can outwit him. You study the wall, and you know where you can get a rope to get out of that wall. And pretty soon, when you've got all your facts together, and the facts are available to anyone who wants them, you get everything together, you will escape. Truth itself is your guide toward escape. It will supply the rope. It will supply the guard schedule, because it is smarter than the prison. Is it come to any news to you that God is smarter than the devil? Did you know that? Or are you still giving more power to the devil in the form of the guards and the cell and the warden? Who are you attributing the most power to? Why don't you wake up and start to trust God instead of the warden? Tom.
Does that connect with this phrase, ye of so little faith?
Yes, of course, of course.
When I'm trying to get beyond myself on a level of thought, I'm just reinforcing my own states.
Yeah. There's no self to be free of thought. That's only a thought there's a self to be free of. Think about that for a minute. Doesn't that knock you off your chair? No? Just not.
Still thank you.
This is kind kind of an emotional statement. When I leave here, I feel carried by a strength what isn't my own yet. When I return to the meetings, I feel very glad because I know there is more of what I need and I don't have yet.
Ah, yes. 1,000 times yes. Go ahead, Phyllis.
I was just thinking, the whole thing is really so simple, and we don't grasp it. So simple, that it's beyond comprehension.
Yes, our complex minds can't imagine such a thing as simplicity. It can't accept it. It prefers complexity because that, again, is a possession. That comes close to what you said, I think. Our confusion is a precious possession. Can you listen to that? Are we dumb or not? My very confusion becomes a very precious possession because now I can alibi why I'm sick and why I hurt you. I'm confused. I didn't know any better. See what liars we are. Somebody.
Yeah, the mechanical mind tries to have a psychology, and all the lies are what it thinks is its own psychology.
Okay, sure. Check.
Something on what Delphine said. I've been observing now for about 1.5 years. There's a part just loves this dependency, and then the opposite. There's a part that dislikes or hates this dependency on the class.
That's right. That's right.
And I'm trying to look and just see the fact of the dependency and not. And the fact of, and just, I can't put it in words now. Just see it and go with it.
Okay. There's no dependency, there is no opposite to the dependence upon truth. There's an opposite in every other dependence, but none upon truth. And that dependence means nothing more than you are beginning to lose your dependence on exterior things, on possessions.
Vernon, anybody can have the truth if they want it, correct?
If they want it.
It takes a long, long time, though, doesn't it?
Yes, long, hard work.
Years.
Oh, yes. Because we're such liars.
Because it took us this long to be such good liars, too, right? 25 years to get this way, so it's going to take another.
Right. These teachings in this room are, to the average human being, the most scary, unwanted thing on earth. Just remember that. What you're hearing here is the most unwanted truth on earth, fact on earth. And we can see it in ourselves, can't we?
Yeah, right.
So we can also see how triply scary it is to people who come here for the first time. Go ahead, Dorothy.
I couldn't help but think it's pleasant to make a flowery statements about the work. Even though they may be true. But when something gets close to home, how uncomfortable it gets. For example, when you made those statements about teachers, I felt a rattle. I felt guilty about what you said. And I was very uncomfortable for a few seconds.
But seekers...
Teachers.
Teachers. Yes, my mind went to you when I said that. Yeah.
Yes. And there was a rattle that I could see. And I was extremely uncomfortable for a few seconds.
Yeah. Is that a fact, what I said about teachers?
Oh, yes.
How many of you ever went to school? Well, you could have fooled me. That line was just waiting, so I thought I'd throw it out. We all know that. Think of that the outstanding example of a neurotic teacher. You remember her? I can't you?
Yeah.
Sure you can. Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, when you were talking about insanity, I could feel, I could feel it. The resistance there.
All right. Okay. Joe.
The statement you said about seeing fear, that look, with the eyes, and seeing fear in someone else and making a god of yourself by thinking that you can frighten somebody.
Yeah. All right.
Was one of those. I felt that in myself.
All right, follow it up. I, being very sick, feed my sickness by scaring you in some way. I'm the husband and I scare the wife, or I'm the boss and scare the employee, or whatever. I can scare you. This means, and when I see you get defensive and scared, I get excited, don't I? I get great pleasure out of it, don't I? Now, here's the particular point I want to bring out, very fine point among a dozen points in that. This means that I have made a god out of my sickness. More specifically, I am worshiping my cruelty. I am calling myself a person cruel person. That is my God. And every time you get scared, that, quote mark, confirms my God of cruelty, which I am. But if you start to see through this and everything else, and I try to threaten you and dominate you and be cruel to you, and I'm watching your face for the usual reaction in order to get fed by it, and you don't do it, what happens to me? I get scared because I am not being fed, and I begin to doubt. See, I'm cruel to you as often as I can in order to keep the delusion going that this cruelty is me. I'm cruel, marvelous. I've got to hang on. You don't do that anymore. The doubts come in. I start to get scared, don't I? And then carry it one more. So you refuse to get scared anymore. I either find someone else, or I'll try to bluff you. Maybe that's a bluff. Maybe I can do it after all. But if you remain strong, if you really have wakened up so that you're not going to be scared of my falseness anymore, then eventually I'll get mad and leave you altogether because you're not feeding me anymore. I'll keep trying a little ways. The devil will creep in this window, that door, whatever. I have made anyone who is lost, which is practically everyone on earth, has made a god out of his viciousness.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm through. Who else wants to say something?
All possessions are thoughts about things and people, and you jolt the idea, the thoughts, and that breaks up the thought.
Let me answer it this way. You have a physical possession of some kind, and it came in some way. When a possession comes to you under certain natural laws, whether it's a chair or another person, why do you latch onto it? This is the important thing. Why do you latch onto it and say, this is now me? I'm this chair, or this silver, or whatever, or I am this person. This is my identity to think that it has now become, it's a possession of mine, therefore it is the same as being me. I'm not sure I followed you exactly, Ruth. I tried. Do you want to try again?
No, I think you.
Oh, okay. Yes, Franny.
Inside me is confusion.
Okay.
Also in the outside world is confusion. In the outside world, when the people think they are losing this confusion, they're going to run to a psychiatrist to regain it, or to a church, or somewhere like that. They have got to have the confusion. The outside world, I'm speaking. On the inside of me and my confusion, I found out now that I possess it, that I want to keep it, but I don't want to run to a psychiatrist.
Okay? All right, write down a sentence. The foremost aim of my psychiatrist is to keep me confused. The foremost aim of my psychiatrist is to keep me confused. If I get healthy, he's out of his $50 an hour. He doesn't know that. He really doesn't know it. His evil is unconscious. He doesn't, he would never believe you. And guess what? He'd hate you for telling him that. And if you say, is hatred a sign of mental health, Mr. Psychiatrist? Then he'd start lying. He'd find some way to lie out of it.
See how countries lie to save their face. I heard on the news last night that we are selling defensive weapons to another country. What a defensive.
How can a machine gun be defensive?
Right.
Look, the word insanity, that's all you need. That's all you need to describe the world. One word, insanity. I guess you.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you said about simplicity, she said a while ago about the simplicity of all this and we can't get it. Does that connect, though, that our mind is so mechanical and when we're trying to think through something, it just takes off and keeps us off of the straight and narrow path?
All right. Well, we've said many times, you can't think your way out of the mess you're in. The thinking will only get you more involved, more mixed up. Did you have, Benny? Yeah.
Yeah, many times you've said that there is nothing to fear, and I've always thought to myself, well, that's easy for him to say, you know. But today, when you hit on that possessiveness, I realized that the reality of possessiveness and the ability to get rid of possessiveness is the end of all fear.
Good. Superb. Right. Tom Jones.
You mentioned acquisitiveness in the first part of the talk. In my life, anything that has ever been acquired has never, any material thing has never fulfilled me in any way, and there's always been the higher message that there is something more than this material.
A vague sensing at the start.
Yeah, it gets stronger and stronger.
Yeah, right. Pray that it gets stronger. Joan Phyllis.
Where you said everyone who is lost has made a god out of his viciousness. If we're afraid of a vicious person, you said this a long time ago and it rang a bell. He said, why are you so immoral as to be afraid of another human being? And I saw that just feeds that not only am I harming myself, but I'm harming the other person by feeding his or her sickness.
Of course. That's unconscious immorality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Get back to acquisitiveness. It's so ingrained inside of us. All you have to do is walk into people's homes and see what they do with what they own. Most people, most women, have china cabinets full of beautiful dishes and crystal and silver and what have you. And these are worshipped.
Yes.
These are possessions that are set up and worshipped. I've seen this all my life. All of us have seen this all our lives. And that's what we have to get away from.
Next time you go into another person's home, do what Phyllis just talked about. You get in the living room, you sit down, and just casually look around the room and ask yourself, what is this person trying to tell me about himself? The books, he's a scholar. The trophies, he's the world's greatest water skier. Whatever. What is he trying to tell me about himself? And maybe a person with a very simple plain room is trying to tell you that he's a simple, plain spiritual student.
It seems so contradictory to our minds that, like, you could have anything and still know you don't have it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Jim.
Then you could take that literally also, because as the person came into your place and said, gee, you're awful messy.
They'd be telling a fact.
In that respect, in my office I have a lot of pictures and things on the walls, mementos. I began to see that I was telling people who I was with these mementos.
Yeah, sure.
I was telling myself who I was.
Sure, tell yourself. Huh?
And as soon as I saw that, I knew I didn't have to take them down.
Oh.
They were already gone.
Oh, all right. All right, but take what? Take any place. Take a church. When you go into a church, everything in there is telling you the following statement. This is a religious place. Something, you understand. Everything about it is trying to con you into thinking this is a religious place. The organ music, the stained glass windows, even the shape of the church building itself, trying to tell you that this is a religious place. I know this may sound like a very common statement, but it's a very factual one too. Why can't you be just as religious walking out in the desert as you are in that church? But you see, people want to get their feeling from a physical thing that says this is how you should feel. Then when they get out in the desert, what happens to their religion? See? We can be religious, can we not? Truly religious inside that church or out in the desert. That's what we're after, because neither is identified with and Stella is on.
On my television set, I have a 3-foot statue of Beelzebub, and I had a woman in my home last weekend, and she tried to make me feel guilty that it had not been given to me, but that I had purchased it.
Comment? Do you want to comment on your comment?
Well, I purchased it so that I'd be aware of how much Beelzebub there is in the world that I see.
Okay.
He's got a tail and 1 foot and 1 hoof and horns from his head and a bag of tricks.
One, two.
Ever since I was 7 or 8, I felt real good going into church. As soon as I got in the building, I felt very good. So that means I've been conned since that age.
No, that means that you liked it better than out there because it was a change of feeling. You were tired of playing baseball with the boys, and so it was the pleasure of a new impression coming into you.
I was thinking, though, what you said about, he would be right saying you were messy. That's outwardly only.
Okay. Okay.
John mentioned about it being, or you mentioned about it being immoral for us to react to intimidation because it gives the other person a false feeling of life.
Right.
Now, is it only immoral for us who know better, but not immoral for them?
No, it's still immoral for them. Of course it is. Oh, it's immoral to be asleep.
I was thinking since we had got into this work, it was more our responsibility.
Yes, this is an example, by the way. All right. This is an example. You know that a sleeping human being, a lost human being, has no responsibilities at all?
Yes.
He has no responsibility. All he has to do, all he has to do is go along and with a mechanical mind that he has no responsibilities. All he has to do is go along with the crowd, get anything he wants, try to get anything. No responsibilities. Responsibility begins when you see the state you're actually in, this hell that we're in. Then responsibilities begin. And at the start, we are given only very, very small ones and mechanical rule ones, like come to every class, don't use bad words in class, and things like that. Do you know a sign that you're growing? Sign that you're growing is where the responsibilities get bigger and bigger and bigger. Think about that. And the preceding this new larger responsibility will be a shame in you, a shock of some kind, because this is beginning to point out to you that you have so much more work to do and you think you're so advanced and all that. Then you're given the shock. Then after the shock comes the awareness that you have this larger work to do, and so you go ahead. All right, good morning. See you tomorrow at 9.
Good morning.